Vanheneva viisastuva nainen podcast-sarjassa keskustelen tänään viisaan vanhan miehen Charles Lawrencen kanssa. Tämä keskustelu on englanniksi ja teemana meillä on vanhempien viisaus, wisdom of the elders. Charles,
Yes.
welcome to this podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you are here with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Me too. Well, I would like to open by realizing as I sit here that this invitation, this threshold where we all are at this moment in time, something happened back in 1989 when grandmother Carolyn and I, on our way to USSR at the invitation of Raisa Gorbachev, came to Finland. And then began the journeys, my returning to Finland every year, sometimes twice a year to be there. And what's coming so forward this morning is relative to the women. And I will share this. I became aware of the history of Finland, the various invasions and occupations, the Swedes, the Russians, the Nazis, then the internal conflict in Finland itself. And what I was experiencing in some of the circles was the history and the word burden comes up of the women there in Finland who had taken on a great responsibility when the men were away at war, all these things that happened. And in some of the stories I then heard later that when the war was over, it was as if the men displaced the women. The women had carried on with tremendous burdens for their children, for the land, everything. And how to even frame that? I'm not blaming, but what I'm sensing in that pattern of what happened, the women's stories, what they had done to survive, the enormous responsibility they had taken on and very hard times over there. And they were somewhat discounted. That makes sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah. Yes.
And what comes now, like with the Hopi and some of the, because they were matriarchal societies over here, the indigenous people. And I learned from grandmother and many of the other women elders out there at Hopi land how the role of making decisions, how to project the future for the coming generations. The women would get together and they had a particular, how to even frame that? It was almost a ritual, a sacred rite. And even the symbology of the kivas are underground over there.
Yeah.
And that's where they prepare. They do a lot of preparation for ceremony. Things happen there. And it's also symbolic of being down in the mother, the womb of the earth. And they would meet together and they would open a conversation. And everybody had a right to speak. You know, and it was always about one interest. They had different topics. And after a period of time, and I was amazed to learn that sometimes They would meet for 24 hours. It would just all that time. They would have, yes, they would eat or whatever they had to do, but they kept the fire burning in a feminine way under the pot. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we looking for? And then when they would have meetings, and then they would have a ceremony to close it down. And they had a responsibility not to talk about it outside. They were meant not to think about it, like put it in the back of the mind. And then they would come back again. They would do this on the lunar cycle, like the new moon. The new moon is very important out there about planting the crops, beginning new things. And they would do that for 2 or 3 months, different cycles. And by the 3rd or 4th cycle, a clarity would come, like an algorithm in our language. But they would open up in a sacred manner, and then a clarity would be there. And they would distill the conversation down to very few points. And then they would present it to the men. And this had been a tradition for eons among the people. And over in Finland, there in the various workshops I was leading, I grew to feel so deeply this respect for the women. There was a level of sadness at times, I felt, when I heard from some women that their grandmothers had been institutionalized, that all these things had gone on. And here these women had done their very best.
Exactly, yes.
Very best. And so there was also in our workshops, we were like take off the mask, take off the false face, because in that survival, people had to, they didn't dare show their real feelings at times. They had to keep going and keep going. And then in the way after that last war, Finland really picked up its own, since it started its own movement, its own dynamism.
Yeah.
And this, I felt such a privilege to be a part of that. And my first time in Finland was 1989. So here we are, almost 35 years later.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of what I call changes that have happened. Sometimes changes are not the things that happen are not well thought out, and there are consequences later, and we realize, oops, that was we didn't think that through clearly enough. We didn't look at the consequences.
Yeah.
And you women, well, the circle we're part of, the Four Winds family. I feel there's such great passion for the women, and especially now with the families coming in, the children there, and there's some of the women there guiding the Four Winds, who are grandmothers, who have this great passion for the spirit of the earth over there, the natural ways. And my whole dedication has been to support and listening to the stories of the individuals. And then with my own gifts and abilities, like what grandmother did to me, point my attention in a certain direction. I had to learn a lot from those grandmothers, because sometimes we're not seeing what someone else can see.
That's right, and we need a guidance of some kind, somebody who can see the whole big picture of and to give some advice or anything.
Yeah.
So, Charles, a little bit about your background for the listeners. So first of all, may I ask you, how old are you? I
will be 90 in September.
Oh my gosh. How does it feel to be 90?
Well, this is an extraordinary time in that doors of perception, understanding of the power of imagination, of the mind. I feel myself being guided from within to revise stories. There's different skills I'm learning now, but we can revise anything. We can revise the facts. Now with the new science of neuroplasticity and bioplasticity, we don't have to have the illnesses we have. We don't have to have a lot of things as long as there is clarity in the imagination. And years ago also, because our imaginations have been so polluted, again, by structured education, programming in some ways, religion has had a big responsibility in negating the individual, not being worthy enough, whatever have you. And I'm in this threshold of every day following the doors, the glimmerings that open up. And I would never have thought when I was younger, I was living by the programs given to me. And I was unaware that, up to the age 7, we're very open. We're what they call in a theta, receptive state. And we accept all these programs, and we don't have the consciousness, the skill to question the programs.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I became my own product of misunderstanding my imagination. Yes, there are all these things would happen, and there are many wonderful things I cannot take credit for with my ego. We call this being a hollow bone in the native way. Things would happen through me, yes, because there was all then realizing there's some function within myself, and then that was responding to or fulfilling a responsibility, for an example. And it took when I was first had this shift of consciousness, I was about 40, when the doors of perception began to open, and then eventually led or being sent to Hopi or to the Northwest or South Africa, all these places that I've been gifted. I began to realize that there's so much more of infinite intelligence, consciousness. Everything is conscious now. And finding once in a while where there's been an old belief stuck back somewhere in the subconscious that is needs to be upgraded, enhanced, to really embrace this massive, whatever consciousness is, it's indefinable in some ways. And yet there's something there. It's a responsive universe. And I'm thinking about the land there and all the different places we've been, all these years of the four winds, tapping into the innate intelligence there, the earth. There's so much history there. It exists as vibrations. And then with the women, especially because you are intuitive, the women, I have my own, very intuitive. And it took me decades to understand what my intuition, the intuition, not just mine, but the higher form of intuition was pointing directions, consider this, consider that, like the elders.
Yeah.
That challenged all the old structures that I had lived by, So, and then one of my great gifts, we were talking about this at the ceremony last week in Utah, it's not that I'm better than anybody. When we sit in that circle, we're all together. However, because for some reason I have been sent all these different cultures around the world, anywhere from Tuva, then up the Arctic Circle, down to South Africa, Egypt, Spain, South America, all over the world, Australia. As Buckminster Fuller talked about, we are cross-pollinating. We bring parts of ourselves like the bees, and we receive.
Yeah.
So that's nature's way. That's life's way. And I had the wonderful fortune to be sent to this man, Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, who also pointed me, opened my mind, turned lights on in my where there's disconnect in my consciousness, to that there's something so much greater available to us.
What about?
And I've had it. I go back to when this all began. I had suddenly an awareness on my way to a Sundance that there's something always waiting within the realm, whether it's inside, outside. There's something always waiting to connect.
Yes.
And I became fascinated by Rumi, the Sufi, and that whole concept. There loads of wisdoms there, and the one that the main one has been a fascination that out beyond these ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there lies an open field. And through the various thresholds, portals of experience I've had, to go out there and realizing it's not negating, but we end up crystallizing. And we believe in just this or that, we lock the north. And there's something so much more. The consciousness is always expanding, evolving.
Yes.
You know? And to go out there and to wait, just to show up. Yeah.
What about, sorry.
No, go on, please.
Yeah, I just I wanted to ask more about grandmothers and this grandmother Caroline. You
Grandmother Caroline, yes.
Yes. Please tell about her and
well, that's a lovely tale. In that I had never had any interest in going to Hopi. I knew nothing about Hopi, other than I'd seen some photographs. And when these doors began to open, strangers would come to me and say something. And I had been part of the teaching team moving around the country and in Canada of opening the doors of perception. What does it really mean to be human? What have we potential within us that has been lying dormant, sometimes suppressed, sometimes just waiting for the right moment? And I was part of a group that went to Sacramento. This was good, or well over 40 years ago. And I had received my first big eagle feather. I was looking for a long time for an eagle feather. I kept getting little ones. And so the sound system went out. We had about 1,000 people in this gathering. And the head of this group, Gene Houston, said, do something. So I got down on the floor of this auditorium, and literally the feather was guiding me. And we all turned in the directions. We were all moving in unison together in a way of harmonizing spirit, which I didn't know then. I know more now of that. And when it was all over, I was in a trance, an altered state. And I got tapped on the shoulder, and I turned around, and there was an elder gentleman there. And turned out he was part Blackfoot, and I have that heritage. Strange connection, but whatever. And he said to me, the first thing he said was that I want you to know that eagle feather is very proud to have you as its owner.
Wow.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And then he said, and while you were doing that, he said, I had a vision, and there's an old woman on Hopi and you're supposed to go meet her. So, okay, and I listened. He did, because on Hopi there are no road signs. It's just all this on the mesas, the desert there. And he said, you're going down the highway, and you're going to see like a modern house there, and there's a little dirt road next to it. And you drive down that dirt road, and you're going to come around, and you're going to see a low house. It's white with some turquoise paint on the windows and all. Okay, that's all he said. And I had already begun the community in Utah, the Aho community. So my partner and I, after the spring dance by the Colorado River, we drove down. And I was also invited to a big native ceremony in the Santa Fe area. So we drove down, and lo and behold, there was a huge blizzard. And I'm not used to driving in snow. But anyhow, driving along the road, I saw the house, and I turned, and we were winding our way around, and there was nobody out of doors I could see, except I turned this one road, and then what I described later as a bundle of blankets out chopping wood. And grandmother was tiny. She was really, very tiny. So I stopped the car, and I couldn't say Twangyama as I say it today, but I said, can you point me to the house of Carolyn Twangyama? And this person, I wasn't even sure it was a man or a woman at that point, and rather loud voice says, put the axe down, and says, what are you looking? Why are you looking for her? I said, well, I was told I was sent to find her. And she said, well, you're looking at her. And she gave me the axe to start chopping wood.
Okay. Nice.
So my partner was not very comfortable. Her life was so different. But we stayed for several days there with grandmother. And then I went on to the native ceremony near Santa Fe. And then we came back and had some days with her. And that began the relationship. And grandmother said that she knew within 10 minutes that I had been sent. And there is quite a difference in indigenous people. A lot of people go looking for something, but those who are sent have a purpose. You know? And I didn't know at that time that I was destined to be the one who made the crucial phone call that got the Hopi prophecy to the UN. And for some reason, they just started accepting me, the elders did. And I was with the elders the third time they had knocked on the door of the UN to tell them about the prophecy and be cautious that we were heading in a way of destruction rather than a way of expansion, creation, harmony way. So that's how I met grandmother. And then it got so that she wouldn't travel without me. I was the one, I didn't know this till later, but I had a reputation out there in Indian land that if you want to be taken care of, Charlie's the one who will make sure everything works for you. So grandmother supported me in the visions I had, that Joseph Campbellin and I had spoken about, and the various elders. So whatever it was that I was doing, the elders wanted to support.
How is about this elder, which indigenous people use it use a lot, and for me, I think it's kind of honor if you are an elder. But is it like, is anybody an elder? Is there kind of age level or wisdom level you can call yourself elder?
Well, it's more by your reputation.
Okay.
There's a lot of old people who are not necessarily elders because the elder implies wisdom, exactly. Service of some kind. Yeah. And there were women out there, grandmothers out there. Well, of course, once grandmother brought me into the village, to speak, the elder women, and it was there were some women who had gone the way of alcohol. There were some women who were not in that elder circle, really. Grandmother had a destiny in that as a child when the U.S. Army came in and they invaded Hopi back in 1906. She was just 6 years old, and they grabbed these little kids out of their mother's arms, and threw them in train cars, took them hundreds of miles away to these Indian schools, and they had survived. They had survived that. Mm. And grandmother, as difficult as it was, that they were training Indian girls to become housekeepers, like servants. That's the way they were demeaning them. And grandmother, again, her gift, because eventually when she went back home, it was 17 years later, when she finally went back home, then she was recognized because she could interpret between Hopi and English. She became a great consultant with different of the elders who spoke out. I'm thinking of Chief Dan Kachongwa, and then David Monunge. That's when I met her. David was still alive. And so she could really speak. And then she began to have this reputation. She was invited around the world. And that her reputation grew. Now, there were other reputations to be had. There was a blind woman, Matilda. She was blind, totally blind, and yet she was the best bone setter. If somebody broke an arm or a leg, she could set them. Hey. Those are those gifts that in the shaman's world, in that other world, one practices that innate gift and one becomes a master of it. Mm. And it's not like today where people want to be a shaman. They want to get this certificate or that, because there was always how to say that? Their priority was to the earth. Their priority was to their fields, growing the corn, the beans, the squash for the next years. Mm. And yet it was grandmother and like a woman, Matilda, others who had these special abilities, even the ones who wove the most beautiful baskets, your reputation grew.
Yeah.
Even the drum maker, like what one memory just popped up to me, the old stories out there, that if you were as a young boy or young teenager were working with a drum master to learn to make your drums and all, you would show up one day for a session, and the teacher would give you a drum and would say to you, now, there are 5 songs in this drum. Don't come back until you have found them. And they didn't care if it was 20 years, longer, but you had to tune in to what the synergy was, the dynamism with it all. And that's part of what happened for me is they would say things to me, and then I would go think about it and practice it. And I didn't know at the time that they were, like if they checking me out, they were finding out, okay, who is this guy really? Mm. And that's something else about becoming an elder, especially in these times, or being acknowledged as an elder, because you've really earned the respect. Mm. You've gone through the hard times. You've survived.
Yes.
And yet you have retained his love.
You've learned your lessons, so to say, also, and also like move with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does this feel?
It feels good. It's what I thought it was, but just wanted to say because it's easy to say, and I think it's so nice word. In Finnish we talk about old people, but there is no kind of elders. In that sense. I mean. Yeah.
Well, what's coming to me, and yes, I've been aware of what I would call the discounting of those old people in Finland.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen across this country where old people went to Florida to live or that. And there's been this collapse of the family tradition. Mm-hmm. And what you and I can speak to today is that we all have a responsibility of dreaming our perfect future, our future.
Exactly.
That was something that was not talked about.
Yeah.
Even 20 years ago in my world.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we take on the responsibility, and I have been up in Canada to some of the native nations up there, and either you're a part of the problem or you're a part of the solution. And no matter where we are, whether young, middle-aged, or old, so-called old, we can dream how we want our lives to be. And I so believe in, and I trust, and even where I am today, this threshold of today of the infinite intelligence, consciousness, it's just waiting for some of us to have a new kind of dream. And I know now that I was a product of hundreds of years of believing certain ways. And we had the so-called patriarchal ways. The ways that, for whatever reason, I think a lot came in with religion, Western religion, but the feminine, the woman was discounted in so many ways.
Yeah.
And she learned to discount herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have seen what some would call miracles or magic happen, where the change of personal consciousness, waking up, that I'm living this story that I don't like necessarily, and these conditions are amongst many of us. So let's get together and have these circles and keep the energy moving, keep it going.
Yeah, changing the views and talking about sharing things. I think that's so important, this sharing part.
Right.
So really, like in Finland, many people are so alone, and it's very like private, and you need to like somehow like many people think we are like learned to think that it's a burden to others if I share my issues, and yet I have what I have learned so is that if you share, so there is always somebody, at least one or several persons, who can like agree that yes you say exactly what I have been going through, but when you don't talk about these things, so then it's like we are making us smaller, some kind of we are pressing ourselves, and that's not wisdom. I don't think
yes,
that
it is. Well, decades ago, when all these doors were opening for me, with a well-known psychologist in New York City. At that time, elders were being just talked about. At that time, what to do with elders. And they began to teach. She was teaching at two colleges in New York City. And then there was a very refined woman out in California, Gay Luce, who had this vision about the elders, the older people. And it was amazing how she went into these various homes for older people. Did a lot of movement. We did a lot of psychophysical movement together with the different kinds, and getting people to even get into the pre-verbal, get before all the concepts. There's that sound, you're recapitulating or energies from beyond. And then that evolved into this group in New York. And we had prisoners, women and men who'd been in the concentration camps. They were there, some of them. We had people born, and these mostly at that first time were elders, and who were in college, wanting to learn more. And then when the word got out that we had younger people from the university wanted to see what was happening there. And it was an amazing process, because this whole whatever healing is, or holing is. It is an organic process from within, in my estimation. And I began to, for storytelling is important, telling our story.
Yes, yes.
And rather than the lament with what the problem of today, I would do things that, again, I'd never heard of this. It was all intuitive. And the way I learned to embrace both, the so-called good, the bad, whatever. Mm. And I'm remembering this one woman, a survivor. I don't want to mention the name, her last name, because it's an international name. But one day we did this group. So to remember the most joyful thing of your life and the most sorrowful thing of your life, to balance that out. And she remembered her high school graduation there in Austria, whatever that was they were living, you know. And then she remembered the clanking of the gas chamber door. And her husband and what have you, they were gone. But they were telling the stories. And we would go from sometimes extreme laughter to everyone lamenting together. And that's a gift you have there in Finland of the lament. Really. And then I have my adopted grandson, you know, Tuomas Ranakari, who's a master in those groups. And again, I learned the wisdom of the Karelian tradition there of how when we truly are lamenting, there's a release that goes on. And it's meant to take us to a completion, to a place of joy, ecstasy.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's, to me, maybe a very ancient tradition that needs to be respected more, brought out.
Yeah,
you know,
I think that in this world, if we see around and its wars and its struggle and its fear and plenty of things, and they say that there is a saying that grandmothers are the ones who save the world. So like they have this wisdom and love. They want peace. They don't want war. So isn't that kind of, I think, supports the idea that we really need to like lift up the identity of grandmothers in my generation and the older ones. So
right. Well, as you're saying that, what I just felt in my heart at that moment was then, like in a circle, have the women talk about their grandmothers, those who were before them, those who they received this inspiration to go on. I know that's one of my, I sense a responsibility that we have a way here among the Native people of that you die twice. And this dying, and it's a big topic right now for some of us. I just got acknowledged for opening that conversation out in Utah. They say that you die when you leave this physical body and go on to the next. And the next time you die is the last time someone remembers you, speaks your name. And I know the names of many grandmothers over these decades because the wisdom they had, they shared. Their wisdom, how to survive, how to do this, you know? And it was not just survival, say out there in the desert, the high desert, when you plant something in the Mother Earth, you plant a seed, you have to really have a conversation with the thunder beings, the storms, because I want you to make my plants grow. And and again, it's all connected with me with the imagination, because there's a certain on my bracelet upstairs. There's a certain glyph that talks about a certain kind of rain. Now, rain is not just rain; it's all different, nuances. But there's a special kind of rain called strong, gentle rain, because if the rain is too gentle, the water doesn't get down to the roots. And if the rain is too strong, it beats up it breaks down the plants.
Yeah.
So they learned over these centuries specificity.
Yeah.
And I've really been with people to the specificity of your intention, the specificity of what you really are imagining, calling forth from the universe. You know, the four winds, the thunder, the rain.
I think it's a pretty amazing that right now there is thunder outside and it's raining. So,
Of course.
of course it is. Because
and my morning card was lightning. And there's something that pops up too with that, is that in the white world out here, the Western world, the nuances of individuals has been disacknowledged in some ways. Like I had a group, they asked me to always sit with the babies, the new dancers out there. And I want to find out in the group, who are the people that see? Who are those who are really visual, see things, you know? Those who are auditory, those who hear. Who are the feelers? Because that's a very unidentified part of most people in the modern world. They make robots out of us, you know, they want us to be all the same.
Yeah.
But there's a very unique sense for us all. And in the indigenous world, you have to claim that gift. And it's meant to serve everybody in the village, you know, because somebody will see something somebody else doesn't see.
Exactly.
Or they'll hear something and they have a responsibility to say it, at least say it.
What about when you've been living among many elders and wise people? So what do you see yourself like the most important learnings you've learned and used in your life, through your life?
As you just asked that question, I realized as a little boy, I had an affinity for elders. And in the teachings of the medicine wheel, there is that the one who comes in the east, the new life, they're in the south, and then above them in the north are the elders. And there's a special energy that's connected between the elders and the young ones. Look at every grandmother who has a grandchild. Something wakes up in her, right? There's a gene or something, we know, call that the grandmother gene, you know?
Yeah.
And that love that just is natural there to pour out. Because you're also wanting those young ones to feel welcome.
Yeah.
And that's so important in the indigenous world, which I have my own story and others that know. We didn't feel welcome when we were born, you know? And there's a whole new study on belonging. I just got a new book on belonging. And we all yearn to belong.
Of course. Yeah.
And there are some of us, though, who are destined to be the outsiders. There's archetypal roles for us to play. And with our discoveries, like there are those who are the outliers, who are adventurers, who've got to go out, but they have to bring home their discovery and share it with everybody.
And accept the destiny also.
Yeah.
Accepting the destiny. I think that's one thing that for myself, I've been struggling a lot because I'm so rebellious. That's something that I've lately thought a lot about, this accepting everything as it is. That's
well, and yet there's a yes and to that for me. Number one, I remember back in the days when I was doing teaching, taking that rebellious spirit, and really putting the spotlight on that spirit. Let that, because somewhere there's frustration buried in there. That spirit as a child was not allowed to fully express itself. It got pushed down. And I had this one memory that this woman was very high ranking in the banking system in California. And I got her, that frustration was there. So I got her to dance it out. And I learned these various skills over the decades of doing it in very soft, slow ways, and then doing it in chaotic ways that all that energy that's been suppressed, because it may not even be your energy, it could be something you inherited from a grandparent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where they had to go quiet because they'd be killed. God knows what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that which stays buried goes against us eventually.
And that, I think that's the important thing, that we have somehow forgot that we are connected to our lineage, and it's kind of separate. So it's just us. And when we start to understand what there are different things that can come up from grandmothers or grandfathers or anything, and I carried all these things, so I'm totally connected to my background and my grandparents and lineage, and that is what makes somehow gives a new aspect of being older elder.
Yeah. Yes. And again, to me, as you're saying that, when these elders get together, they can help revise what's right now. If there's been a collective issue to push the elders aside, or there's not support there, well, that is a system that is collapsing.
Yes.
And we have to have a new dream, but we got to dream it individually and then collectively, and find out even in the circles, who are the dreamers? Who are the ones that are gifted with that power? Look, and what we're doing over here now, remembering the future. Remember the past. Remember, we're also part of a timeline.
Yes.
And I know I'm feeling very invigorated and liberated these days, because right now we come around Jupiter's in a certain place, and Uranus and Pluto,
Yeah.
And what wasn't possible 12 years ago, maybe what is not even possible, what is now.
Yes.
And then to have the education, re-educating ourselves, unlearning certain things and learning new things.
Yeah.
And I have, yes, in fact, I almost started crying the other day in Utah, because we had a dedication ceremony for a ceremonial pipe. And there was a big gathering, about 40 people were there, maybe more. And I was asked to dedicate the stem of the pipe, which was the masculine. There was a native woman there to do the bowl. But all of a sudden, all the teachings from the elders were just pouring into me. And I started to cry because I missed them so much. They're in my mind, but oh my God, it was nothing like sitting down and massaging grandma's toes, her legs, because she trusted me.
Yeah.
Or the other stories of elders who had been in these Indian schools, they trusted me for some reason, but I missed that.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't aware I was missing them that much, till out in front of all these people, the tears just started coming down my eyes.
You were channeling
Oh,
them.
Yeah. And then that, like you're talking about, from the grandmothers, you were channeling all those.
Yeah.
Goes way back.
Yeah. And I think it's so valuable, and we really need to start to remember again, appreciate the lineage, appreciate what they have lived through, and they live through us every day, every second.
Yeah. Right. And there is that one song I was given, when we say, because in all these conversations like this, there's a revitalization.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a liberation.
Yes.
And each one of us, in the native way, each one of us, that no two folks have the same thumbprint, no two folks have the same cry. And like with the penguin world, the mother out of hundreds of baby penguins, the mother penguin knows which one is hers.
Yes.
That cry is there. And bringing forth that cry, and Thomas and I explored that, but in that lament, in that pre-verbal place, before programming, before all the woundings and all, there is a primordial cry inside of each one of us. The baby comes out with this cry. And before the baby was shushed. But that in the native way, they don't do that. That cry is allowed to turn into a song.
Yeah.
And that's what we found, especially in back in those days in New York City. Even those folks with concentration camps, little kids, you know, the poetry that began to come out, they began to move differently. There was a total revitalization of their spirit, you know.
Yeah, amazing.
And I know, because of my own experience, I know this is possible. This is not just some idea. This is possible. What you're doing.
It's a dream coming true, or dream, living the dream to see it. And that's the vision, and that's where to focus on. Could you or how would you describe in a few words what's for you? What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? Oh my golly!
A huge question in a few words. How about?
What it's evolved to is oh boy. To me, the journey is about joy. It's an adventure. Life is an adventure, and it's about dreaming, imagining, exploring. Because no two of us have the same experience. We're like snowflakes. No two are alike, or thumbprints. And the meaning of life is to dream, to have a ball. Yeah. To live. And what does that really mean, to live? What does it really mean? And if, like what happened last year in the Four Winds camp, we were doing the Balinese movements one day, and then we were all moving on a teepee. And this one little 7-year-old boy, Carney, I wouldn't mention his name, but he was out there in ecstasy.
Yeah.
You know, he was doing his thing, you know, he wasn't looking at anybody. And I just said, now look where there's real authentic. Someone is really in their ecstasy. Yeah. And that's what life's about, to be in ecstasy, have a ball.
Yeah. What a few final words. How would you, or because you know Finnish people, and you know a lot about our culture, and also what we talked about here a bit earlier, that what would your advice be to people, eldering people getting older here? What's to do?
Well, in the situation that exists right now, say they're in Finland, they've got to dream. They have a responsibility to dream how they would like their lives to end. Rather than being pushed aside, no, they need to be respected. And then have to earn that respect in a way, not they just given to you, but to dream a new future for themselves and all elders, for those who come behind. That they have a meaningful place in the culture. I think the field is open for that, and the responsibility is, I know I have the responsibility to dream my own dream. To imagine, otherwise, to imagine each day as being a gift. Each day, who knows? There's no guarantee about tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
And to live fully today. As fully as possible.
Yeah.
Get out of the chair, find a way to get outside. And to me, again, open that door of imagination and remember the future. Don't drag the old stories, the old dry bones around, but how dump everything down and open yourself, because destiny is, everybody has a future, and we never know what is possible until we open our minds to and our hearts to something greater.
I think it's this remember the future is so good.
Remember the future, an ideal future.
Yeah.
And this conversation, and the Tibetans do it, some cultures, make a decision how you want to die. And practice that. Have an image of it. Why do you have to be sick? Why do you have to be in the hospitals or in dementia? No. Open your arms wide to life, and we're all going to cross over someday.
Yeah.
It's there. And make the decision how we step over that line.
Yeah.
I feel that my last breath is finished.
Yeah.
And between now and then, there's a lot of pleasure, a lot of joy.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I think too. That it's now is the time, like to make the rest of the life as easier and easier all the time, leaving the baggage behind, leaving the old thoughts and old habits and old opinions that don't serve us anymore, because we change all the time, and the life changes, and we need to make our journey as smooth as possible, and then
as glorious, as magical as possible.
Yeah.
Bring in all the worlds, because it's all consciousness. I'm surrounded by trees out here. They're all conscious. Mother Earth is conscious, and take back, open our minds and realize we're all part of an infinite field.
Yeah.
Limitless field of possibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You talked about the song. Would you like to sing a song here now at the end of the program? Your song.
Okay. Well, one song that is still not finished yet. There's a whole bunch of them. But the most recent song for all of us is Rumi's invocation. Out beyond, out beyond, out beyond. Come on, let's go there. Out beyond, out beyond, out beyond. Come on, let's go there. Out where the wind is wild and free, where you are you and I am me, and the all of us is we. Come on, let's go there. Out beyond the rights and wrongs, out beyond the shoulds and don'ts, out beyond the this and that. Come on, let's go there. Let's all go out there. That's come together in that way.
I got thrills over my body. Thank you.
Going beyond. And every day there's an opportunity. Doors can open where there were never no doors,
Yeah.
And to reawaken that imagination.
Yes.
For all of us, not just for the elders, but the elders have the possibility of doing it for all being. Yeah. Especially in a time I get all these messages about AI, we're all being programmed for this and that. No, we've got to be rebellious.
Yeah.
Like your little rebellious girl, No, I'm not going to let them take my mind. Yeah. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. There is still, we need to like fight for the humanity. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the future generations.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know about fighting for it, but
that was
being an advocate for it.
Yes, exactly. I noticed that.
I'm not interested in war or peace,
Yes.
Put them over there.
Yeah.
I'm here for harmony. I'm here for joy. Yeah. Celebration. Every day, celebrate. Exactly. There's something to celebrate.
Yeah. Life is a gift. Every day is a gift.
Yeah.
And meeting you and talking like this, it's a huge gift. So
thank you. And I want you to know, after this conversation, I'm now having a conversation with the Utah women.
Yeah.
They all lined up for this morning.
Yeah. All right. It's kind of aligned, and also that you told about this you got this coin.
There's a wave building.
sign.
Something's momentum is building.
Yeah. So this is the important topic right now.
Very. A crucial point of conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Charles. I wish
My
you
joy.
beautiful, nice days, and I think that we can take another talk because we have so plenty. You have so much to share, and I'm sure that the listeners.
I do. I have a lot to share. It's my journey. Yeah. And I'm here. I'm here for as long as I'm dancing.
Yeah. Next time we dance a little.
Okay,
and
my
you come
dear.
to Finland too soon, right?
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Moi moi. Big hugs.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.